All right. So today is Monday, the 30th of January in 2023. And my guest is Alicia Nahmad. Alicia is a PhD in human robot collaboration, an architect and an entrepreneur. She is the CEO and founder of two startups, MI Toolbox and the Circular Factory. Today, we'll talk about how to reimagine the construction industry, including through advances in technologies such as digital and advanced manufacturing, robotics, and modularization. Alicia, welcome to the show.
Hello, Niklas. Thank you very much for the invitation. Very excited to be here talking with you today. And thank you very much.
Great. Very excited to have you on. Alicia, besides what I already said about you, can you give listeners a bit of a sense of who you are as a person and what's your background?
Yes, sure. I'm an architect by training, and I have been working in the construction industry for the last 15 years, working building different from skyscrapers to small residential projects, large pavilions, and very kind of more innovative structures. I have also been working in digital fabrication and robotics, and for the last 10 years, where I have been focusing on how can we merge these two worlds, or how can we bring these digital kind of advanced technologies into the construction industry more on a granular level. So put that to the real to the SMEs and to all the other players in the industry. So that has been my work and research. I have been I was based in London for 12 years, and now I'm in Canada, and I'm in Roatan. So the two kind of places where I am doing most of my work and research and startuping. And yes, and I think that's my a little bit of my background.
Great. So you have a background in academia and research in design and in architecture. How did you transition to become an entrepreneur?
Uh, I never I never really um kind of wanted saw myself as an academia person, although I'm now ending up in this kind of a field. Uh, I think that from very early on, I studied in Mexico City, and then I moved to London to the DRL, to the Architecture Association, a design research lab. And from there, at that time, the area was starting to promote this thing of being called visiting schools, right? Where they will kind of you will propose a program, go somewhere in the world, and bring this knowledge with you and with your colleagues. And it was really fun, right? We will get the students, make a kind of talk to another local university that will host us. And then we will kind of distribute all the knowledge that we were getting at the AA to these visiting schools. So it was really a lot of fun and a lot and great experiences. We started to build these huge pavilions on the visiting schools in Mexico. Then we did China, we did India. So we were really kind of trying to disseminate the knowledge and the things that we had. At the same time, I had a lot of previous experience in Mexico, in the construction sector. So I could call people that I knew, like contractors, and I kind of started to see kind of their interest into what we were doing, right? And for me, that kind of started to be very exciting because I had my workers, for example, that I had worked with them before for years. I would call them, hey, I'm doing this concrete stuff. Can you please come and work with me because I need someone to be with me? They will come. And then we did this for a few years, right? And, and by this time I will come to Mexico again and I will call them again, hey, can you come? I'm going to build another pavilion. And they were these very interesting shells using all of these new digital design methodologies that were not that we were just starting to really research and use. So at that time, they will come to my construction site or to work with me, and they will tell me, "Hey, Alicia, or Arki, you know what? Since I worked with you last time, I show my clients now that I use this shell, and they just kind of pay me a lot more." And also they see that I'm not only doing traditional columns and slabs and the traditional construction work. So I could start to see really kind of very tangible the benefits that these technologies have not only for the students and for designers and for architects, but really all across, right? So at that time, I was working in a normal office, doing also a lot of like parametric tools and a lot of design tools for them. It was a large office doing a lot of stadia and sport infrastructure, which also is one of my passions. So I was very happy. But then I kind of had the opportunity to kind of move into doing a PhD, and that was like a good compromise into like, well, I can have some of my time to also develop these other technologies, and to also kind of keep building pavilions. And I already had this knowledge in my head that that what we were doing was benefiting a lot of people. So then I started. So then that's when like kind of I started my PhD. But I always had this like thing inside me that I wanted to do this available, and I wanted to really bring this to more people. And I knew that within academia, it's great. Like you can do a lot of research and really experiment, but to bring this to the greater kind of people, to everyone, it had to be through a startup, and it had to be through companies where I can really disseminate this knowledge. So I think that's how I was always like in this duality of like, yeah, I wanted to keep doing research and work and keep trying to do experiments, but I also wanted to bring this to everyone, to make it accessible. And that's how I started with like, first we had architecture extrapolated, where we were building a lot of these pavilions, um, collaborating with each page, with a lot of offices, and then kind of started to morph into my secret factory and now in my toolbox. So I think that, but always kind of having that academic research in the background that has allowed me to like also kind of tailor into talent also, like to find talent and people that I know is interested in doing this with me, and then they come and then they kind of we keep going in a more company-wise kind of market.
Right. So you're saying you gained practical experience in the construction industry very early on. And then in academia, you discovered new technologies that were kind of feeding into your work that you were doing in the construction industry. What was it specifically that impressed you when you were in academia or researching or discovering these new technologies that made you kind of question how things were done in the construction industry before?
I think that like I don't remember like the term, like this was like 2012, right, and 2011, and all the thing of like kind of robotics in architecture was a lot newer. Like right now there are like a lot of robots in almost every university and everywhere, right? But at the time there weren't so many. But I already I was starting to look into it, to be like into the robotic conferences, like kind of really start to look into the field. And we were building one of these like innovative shells, and these like kind of innovative pavilions in Mexico. And 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 at that time, like we could see that the trades and the workers had the skills to do it, but it just came to the point where like because of the shape, we did say like how can we like communicate this shape in an efficient way, right? And then in an efficient way, because they don't really need a lot more. If they know how to make the shape, they will know how to make it, because we already had worked with them before. We know that they are skilled, that they will know. And then it came like we were just talking and with the team and really kind of brainstorming. And it was like, well, if we had like a robot to just trace the shape in the 3D space, then they will be able to just trace it on top, because they didn't even need any formwork, any structure. What they needed was just to know where to precisely position the different reinforcements, right? And that's when we kind of saw, well, it's just like that kind of that ability of work, moving from digital into the physical world. And when you have that we really need to improve, because then we do have the skilled trades, we do have the skilled for workforce that will be able to deliver on it. But how do we do this translation in a very efficient way to keep like kind of all the efficiencies that we have on the digital design process, to translate them into the physical reality? And I think that moment, that was 2013, we were working in Mexico doing one of the shells in one of these visiting schools, that I kind of thought, well, this is really something I really want to dive in and to kind of really work. So when I went back to London in 2014, I didn't go until 2014, but I went back, and in 2014 is when I quit my job, and I kind of was really decided I really want to kind of dedicate most of my time to really understand how can we do these representations and how can we create these collaborations between the digital and the physical world in the construction process. So I think that was like a moment where really it, it was just like it just came to me like, well, it would be so simple, right? If we could just aid them or augment them with the machine because they already know how to do everything else. I don't need to do like super complex things with the machine. I only need to help them to get that digital information.
Mhm. Can you help me sort of give a clearer picture of what you were describing? You were talking about building pavilions, right? What are these pavilions and what are they used for? And then you're using robots that are aided by software to build these pavilions in a better way. Is that, do I understand that correctly? And can you say a bit more about that?
I'm sorry. Yes. No. So at the time we were like kind of using the digital design techniques I mean, explore like these efficient geometry shapes, like efficient form, right? The structural forms that will be better, perform better and use less material. However, most of these shapes were curves, like very curved. And we were like the way that we were working at the time is like we were designing it and then we were building them to the different visiting schools like in Mexico, in India, in China, really always trying to keep incorporating the work, kind of the trades. So we were in Mexico City at the time and this was like a very nice curved shell. So we already had built one. It was the second one that we were building. But this is a concrete, it's made out of concrete, the concrete material. Uh, but this one was like a lot of a more complex shape. And that's where we were like kind of really trying to figure out how can we translate this shape without translate this shape from the computer to the physical world for the robots, for the humans to just, the workers to just build it without having to kind of build the whole thing 2 times, right? It would be the more traditional way of doing it is that if you have a very curved shell or a very, very curved geometrical shape, let's say on the 60s or before, what you will do is you will just build the same shape with like timber or with like some wood, and then you will kind of cast on top of it, right? So you will build it 2 times. So we were thinking, how can we make this translation? At the time, we didn't have the robots, right? But that was kind of what we started. I started to, it really kind of hit my head, this idea of like, well, that's what I really need to focus on at the time. But to build this shell, we ended up using a CNC machine, which is like a router machine, a 2D machine to make contour profiles and then kind of start to build it. But that idea of augmenting the workers through the digital machines was what really kind of got ingrained in my brain about this is what I need to focus on.
Mhm. Great. I'd love to dive a bit deeper and understand the construction industry because to me, that's a relatively new industry. I don't have much of a professional experience in it. Many of my listeners don't. I do interestingly have I did a bit of academic work when it comes to the management of large scale infrastructure projects, including construction. And I've been like a consultant at the Berlin airport, which was like plagued by massive cost overrun and delays. So that's kind of my exposure to the construction industry. Um, but what can you say about the construction industry? What's surprising to many people? What's interesting to know about the industry?
I think, I mean, the construction industry is very interesting. I think that it's one of, I mean, unfortunately, or it's one of the less digitized, and that's what like people always kind of talk about, right? Like, our construction industry is like kind of this, like kind of industry, like all kind of industry, right? And you imagine like kind of workers like lifting all of these heavy things, very unsafe. It has like a very, very bad reputation. Um and like kind of, like not super safe and dirty and kind of a lot of these things that are unfortunate. And also that are, but it wasn't like this all the time. Like, I think that in the past, or like, and still in some trades, I have found that there was a lot of pride in the trades, in being part of the construction industry, in knowing like masonry or welding or carpentry and ebenistery. Like there was really like a lot of pride, of pride, and a lot, and it's like and people very very highly skilled in that were kind of doing this task that are still schools for the trade. Like in France, there are like, for example, compagnons and these kind of schools that really focus on training, right? And then you get these people that are super high skilled at trades that do fantastic work, and plastering, like all of these kind of things that has been disappearing. That has been like these very skilled trades have been really disappearing. So there is a lack of skill, and I think that has led to the construction industry to be more basic in a way, right? So now the buildings are kind of it's more difficult to make this kind of to make the more complex things maybe and I think that and that is due to like a lack of skills or like like that has been going on for a long time. Also there is the issue of like young people, right, who don't really want to be in the construction industry because it also has all of this bad rep because it's seen as boring, as dirty and whatnot. So those are, I think, two of the main issues in the construction industry is that there is no there is a huge loss of skills and there is no new young talent kind of incorporating a lot of the talent people because it's in an apprentice sort of way how it has generally evolved, right? So a lot of the talent of the master builders, for example, will be retiring in the next 10 to 15 years, at least in the UK and in Canada. And the intake is so low that there is really no one to take this skill. So that I think is one of the big problems in the construction industry is the lack of new talent. The other thing is that the automation. So I think that when you in your head think about the automation, we think about the car industry, right? We think about production lines and we think like, oh yeah, there will be robots and they will be making these cars and we all have that image in our heads of like the Ford kind of production line. So what happened is that when you start to kind of think about automation of the construction industry, we think about cars. So we are thinking like, oh yes, all of these parts and components are kind of being produced in a factory and are kind of coming out and being deployed. Unfortunately, that's the truth in most of the cases. However, like that, the digitization of the construction industry has been done as if it was a car. However, buildings are not cars. So then they are not made to be moving around. They are in a certain space. They have a lot of more, they have to be customized to the place where they are. They have to be, so a lot of the times you are not doing a new building, but you are renovating an old building or you are retrofitting an old building. So that means that a lot of the times the construction and these processes haven't been automated yet, right? Mm. Can I see you?
I see and hear you. All good.
Oh, sorry, it just went all dark for a second. Sorry. So a lot of these processes haven't been are not automatable in that kind of way when we think about cars or that manufacturing way. So and I think that has led to a situation where like a lot of the buildings are done with modular construction, which means it's done in a factory and the panels are come and deployed on site as if they were cars. However, cannot really address the bigger. And it is no, and we know that modular construction will not be able to address the bigger market just because and just because it's not it is customizable to like all of the intricacies of it, like smaller plots or like fittings or all of that. So I think that the construction industry kind of got caught into this in this period of time where like it didn't go digitized on time, where it was then so you have your traditional construction side where you have all these people working, you have different trades. You as a construction manager will have like a timeline of your different trades, like timber, concrete, plaster, painters, hydraulics, and you have to organize how these trades come into construction so that they don't clash with each other and everyone has enough to work. So it was in this very kind of old-fashioned sort of process in a way, right? Where you had master builders teaching apprentices, and then they were kind of going up the chain, and it didn't digitize in time, and then when it wanted to digitize, we started to think about, well, let's do it like the same way that cars are doing, which are like so successfully have been manufactured in factories for a long time, when actually is not the case. It's a totally different industry. And at the same time, we also find this time where like, well, it kind of didn't catch that. And now we have an industry that is like lacking a skill, that is not attracting young talent, and that is kind of constantly being blamed as a very inefficient, a lot of pollution, a lot of unsustainability, and as one, and it kind of keeps on this dark side of history somehow, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's in a way surprising that like many big cities that are very desirable to live in, like London or Berlin or Paris or New York or San Francisco, they have a very high demand for people to move there. At the same time, housing prices are massively increasing. Isn't that like a great opportunity for the construction industry? Why don't we build more in these places?
I will say that that the affordability of housing and the fact that we want to build more. Yes, we do, but we also want to be able to build better, and we want to do things that are easy to deploy, more sustainable, and more efficient. However, I'm not sure if like these two problems can be linked together. I will say that a lot of the housing affordability might be more related to policy and to governance, and to a lot of the situations that are related to like building code, for example, which are pretty outdated, are not really kind of catching up with new technologies and with new fabrication methods, and with new research. Like to do anything new uh, in the construction industry, like you have to go through like a series of approvals that can take 10 years. So it's not really kind of in line with like trying to deploy new things or new construction systems. So I will say that the problem of the housing affordability is not so much a construction industry problem as it is a regulatory problem and a policy problem and a problem based on like building codes and a lot of these things that are not,
Yeah.
that haven't been updated.
Which might be one way to explain why the industry has, well, not modernized or stagnated, right? So we had another example on the podcast about the nuclear power industry, right? So it was also heavily regulated. Any approval, if you even have a chance to get it in the first place, takes decades, right? So it just means the technology development is slowed down because you're not keeping pace in real time with market demands, right? You can't deploy new technology as efficiently because, you need this time to convince the regulators to adopt new technology. And that's very hard because with new technology, you have to kind of rethink previous safety standards, right? So could that be a reason that the construction industry hasn't been able to introduce a lot of technology?
Yes, I think that's correct. That's definitely a reason.
Mhm. Yeah, because that seems to me a common thread when I see it many other cases. So I'm wondering, how can we overcome that, right? So what are the ways for entrepreneurs in the construction industry to introduce new technology? How are you thinking about bringing new technology into the construction industry?
Well, one of the things that we are doing is like we are developing this like a kind of uh, augmented toolboxes, right? Where basically we do have like a box with robot arms with like a lot of end effectors and a lot of different tools. And we are kind of deploying them or renting them, or they are for rental, right? To the SMEs, to the contractors that might want to rent. Now, the advantage there is that we are not fundamentally kind of changing the construction like results in a way. Like if it's like a timber framing building, for example, it will remain being a timber framing building. What we are doing and what we are really trying to do with that is like trying to upskill that contractor. So he comes with us, he trains into like robotics detail fabrication. He knows how understand how to use them. And now he can take this like the same, and the way that we are trying to do it is like kind of say, well, the same way that a contractor maybe, for example, will need like a miter saw or a chainsaw that maybe he doesn't normally have, right? So then he will go and rent a tool. So you go and rent a tool, which is not something very, very common in the construction industry and in other industries, that you will rent whatever tools you require to that you don't have to fix and to oil yourself. And the idea there is, well, what we are trying to do is to really not have to deal with the regulations and with the code, because they're only training them. Then they rent this tool. The tool just happens to be a robot that can do a lot of tasks for them, right? That can help them to like measure and cutting and doing and drilling and so now we are making this human, more efficient and faster, and and he now is like skilled in like digital technologies and etc. But he's not. But we are not trying. But we are really kind of being careful in not trying to to mess or to get involved with a lot of the kind of more material based or things that will really take us a lot of time for regulation. So I think that there is an opportunity to make the change at a smaller, to start the change into like introducing these tools and kind of just try to, for them to be part of the process as opposed to a total new process. And I think that is something that I see a lot of benefits in doing that. And that's also something that I know is a way that other industries kind of use, right, to enter the market. And I know, like, for example, like with like the tortilla industry. I mean, I know that something that one of the, and this was something that one of the kind of owners of one of these, the biggest tortilla producer in Mexico City, what he told me was like, well, when you when they try to start to make them in England, in the UK, and to import them, he said, like, if I say that this is like a tortilla, then I will be on the Mexican foods section, right? So I will be like on the special food section, which only like few people go. But if I make a wrap, then I am in the general market with the bread. So then I am something that starts to introduce into the people life and not seen as a specialty or as something that is exotic and they only do once on Taco Tuesday kind of thing, right? It's something more normal. And I think that that's what we are trying to do. Is see, okay, how can we start to deploy some of these tools in a way that they just integrate with existing workflows, and it's just not just like a totally new thing that requires all of these changes. It's just like some new thing that they are doing, but just seamlessly it can blend with other things that they already do.
Okay. So am I getting this right? Please correct me if I'm wrong. There's a lot of regulations, mainly building codes, right? So, you know, the sizes, the heights, and sort of safety features. I'm just making things up, right? And the materials you can use. So that's a bit harder to disrupt with technology, right? Because to do any of these things might go against some regulations. So you're focusing instead on augmenting humans, right, to do that process more efficiently. Is that kind of the story that you were?
Yeah, so we're introducing the technology as one more tool that humans could use on their repertoire of tools, as opposed to something that is radically new. That's just something else that they can just use the same way that they will be using like any other tool. This just happens to be like a robot that will do a lot of things for them, right? But yeah, the idea is like that with teams, we kind of blend these with their existing workflows. And I think that some of the ideas is that then, or what we are testing with that is that, well, there is a lot of things of adaptation in that way, and to kind of, and also then it's what we have found out also, a lot of these young people now kind of, we have got a lot of requests for using the technology. Like, I mean, like young people kind of get interest because they're robots. So I think that this, so it's exploring these ways into which we can make it part of the practice and eventually then make the bigger change. I think that that's how we are approaching this problem, or how we are trying to start to introduce the digital technologies into the construction industry.
Yeah. So can you talk a bit more about the circular factory? How did you get to found it, and what is it doing? What problem is it solving?
Yes, the circular factory, of course. The circular factory is a startup that we that I am doing in is based in Roatan, in Prospera, inside that Prospera. We started with the idea of the circular factory 23 years ago now. And I think that came from like really looking at what were the options, right? On the island, yeah, to build these kind of complex geometries and very beautiful designs that were envisioned by Prospera as part of the vision of this new city, right? So we had a few options there. And most of the options will kind of be related to importing the materials or to importing the pieces. And at that time, we were talking with Eric Bremen, founder of Prospera, and he had this idea in his mind about Prospera being like this platform for prosperity, right? For bringing prosperity for everyone. And so in this conversation, we kind of said, well, can we just instead, and that makes sense. And it goes back to something to what I was talking about in like building buildings as cars. Will it make sense to be shipping all of these pieces from either Europe or the US, or should we just try to build them on site? And I mean, or near the site, let's say, not exactly on site, and train the talent in the way as we do this, right? So train the talent, upskill the locals, and also kind of bring this prosperity because now they will be getting the money for making it. So kind of Eric was supporting this initiative of this idea, and it has been like a long process. We are 3 years into it. And so we started to design, okay, what will be the minimal investment, the minimal requirement to make this factory work, or to make these fabrication facilities like an advanced workshop for carpentry work. So we started to look into machines, into robots, of course, robots were going to be there just because they are so flexible and they can allow for so many different uses, and they are cheaper than other kind of fabrication machines, right? And other big machines for like timber panels and timber production. So we started to look into that. We made the different layouts, and then eventually we kind of started to also develop a software that will kind of ease this transition and allow like kind of local people to just very quickly get trained into the use of the machines and be able to participate in the production of these very sophisticated pieces. So that's how the Shaker Factory was born, and the idea of like, well, I think that also 2020, it was like the beginning of the pandemic. We were starting to see all these changes, right? Like all these disruptions to our lives. So it was also, I think, and we know that at the time also in the US, there were all these ideas of onshoring, of bringing manufacturing back. So I think that that's also something that was very clear for us. It's like, well, uh, just for the machines, it took like 1 year to arrive. So imagine being shipping all of these products right now. Does it make sense anymore in the world as we know that currently things are? So that kind of was a lot of this idea of bringing the production capabilities into the island, into a very remote location, which of course hasn't gone without that kind of lot of challenges, and also upskilling people in the process.
Wow, that's fascinating, right? So can you tell us a bit about the circular factory that you're building right now? How does it, how will it look like, and what will it do once it's finished?
So right now, we are building the actual building. It's a facility. It's like it's not the minimal. It's the minimal footprint that we kind of really wanted to go. It's about 500 square meters. It has two large robot arms, ABB robot arms. It has a lot of other machines like for carpentry. Most of them is just like a augmented carpentry shop in a way. And the idea, we are aiming to have an opening later this year. We think in the summer of 2023, we are aiming for an opening, and we are going to be producing initially the panels for the Beabu development inside Prospera, but we are also looking at working with other other of the developments like that are going on currently inside Prospera, maybe the other towers, and a lot of the new kind of constructions, uh, like towers and residential developments, commercial developments, things that are going on in the island. We are also kind of we are expecting to have a team of around 15 people, like most of them will be locals, island people that will be working with us. In that will directly benefit from the digital technologies. However, indirectly, we think that we are going to have more than 200 employees that will be indirectly be benefiting from the circular factory.
Yeah, and that's so it's a kind of a high-tech workshop with robotic arms, where local workers will produce building materials for construction projects on the island. I'm very much looking forward to see that. It sounds so exciting, and I've been to the construction site a couple of times. Um, how does the business model look like, right? So will you sell the building materials to the construction sites, to developers at a higher price? Or how can I think about that?
Yeah, we are right now. We are kind of we are selling the finished products to the contractors or to the people that are building the buildings, right? What we are also developing we are also developing the digital and the software interface for doing this, for producing this. So eventually we are like a design to production company where like you can really kind of come with a design or something that you want to build. We are going to be able to and we're going to be able to fabricate it, right? To rationalize it, to make it into fabricatable pieces and to give you a finished product. So we are aiming to really kind of work more with like complex products and be able to just deliver them as a finished product.
Right. So, and that software component, you can then also monetize by licensing it or to other players in the construction industry.
Correct.
Okay.
So we are also licensing the software to other companies, and we are also so those will be the two main revenue streams, right? So one is a finished product, other is licensing the software. We are also right now we have also incorporated 3D printing facilities on the software, not on the factory, not on the physical setup, with the idea of some of the parts, we know that eventually they will require from 3D printing. So we are also kind of incorporating other uses that are not only timber, but right now the main use is timber.
Great. So in what ways does Prospera make a difference for you for the project? Is there anything that's easier for you to do there or to showcase it, or what are the advantages that you see?
Yes, I think that we are really kind of excited, right, to be part, and we really want to be part of this effort of having a new city with like kind of new governance methods, new ways of building. So I think that for us is very important to really have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit and support. A lot of the workflows are the circular factory as a shop, as a timber shop. We are building it currently to like international standards because we just think it's important to keep that so that we can also export the system or the layout or how it is built, right? So we are being very rigorous about kind of the like keeping everything into international standards with the aim of then having this as a facility that then could be used for other projects. But definitely Prospera is helpful in having this exposure and really being able to build this, to build it and to start to produce the components. I think that the streamlining of the process into a much faster operation has been very interesting in the collaboration with Prospera.
What do you mean streamlining of the process?
Like actually being able to like build it, and I think that 3 years, like 3 years to build it, sound like a lot of time. But from other people that I have talked to about like doing startups in the construction industry, they tell me 3 years is actually very quick. So I think that a lot of that is thanks to that like ability of being maneuvering within the Prospera framework.
Specifically when it comes to getting permits for what you want to build or kind of having your choice in what building codes you abide by, or what are the specific ways that
I think that
Prospera is
in terms
struggling?
of like the building codes, we are using the international building code as that is what like the project is coming with, of course, with some tropicalization. But I think the fact of being able to just build the factory and bring the robots and really bring the people in. So like kind of having all of these things coming together like a space and and and, and being able to look at the different yeah, like kind of codes for the final for the finished pieces and the different kind of work and kind of designing this workflow with this idea of a high flexibility, but always complying with the standards is something that we have really been working inside Prospero.
Yeah, yeah. Is there also anything by way of would you import any of the materials, or do you source all the materials locally?
I know that's actually one of the mandates that we really are trying to do with Secret Factory is to ensure that all of the materials are local. So that really the benefit that we can bring to the region is also in the fact that all of the timber, all of it is local, right? So we are buying local product, we are using local talent, and as opposed to the other option, which was importing everything, materials and finished products. So that's something that we have really put as a border, right? Like as a hard line in our process is that we are kind of using everything local.
Great. So how can the circular factory scale from Prospera to the rest of the world?
Yeah, so we have been looking into that. So one option is that of course creating more complex projects like we have been talking to other Latin America kind of there's lots of new resorts and new construction projects that are very interesting geometrically that are going on in the region that will benefit from having an advanced fabrication facility that they don't have to so that is more nearer, right? It's closer to them. So I think that it would be like the idea is like the supporting the finished product. We are also kind of looking into the model, into like the setup and the machine model and the workflows. As that's something that I mean that we build it with the intention that it could be repeated. That eventually you could just buy new robots and put them in a different place, right? So we are also looking at building another secret factory as required in some of the other islands that are also going through like a huge construction boom. And yes, and the software, of course, which is like the third part. So I think that those are the three things that we are looking as our main avenues for expansion. But for
Right.
now, we are focusing on the finished products, on like being more. And it's not like we are going to produce what you bring. It's like a design to fabrication facility, right? So you bring a design, we are able to make it and fabricate it and eventually give you finished pieces, which is not a very common that for a lot of shops to do.
Right. I'd like to talk a bit about what's ahead, or what's the future for technology in the construction industry. So one thing that many people, including myself, I'm curious about that you already mentioned is 3D printing. So how is it already used in construction, and what do you see as the pathway to use it more, and what can we do better with it?
Yeah, I definitely think like 3D printing is a offers great opportunities to advance. However, how to like build more for example, the same complex shapes, like have like a more ease to build formwork. It also kind of allows to have more affordances as to like embedding design features, like even like for installations for hydraulics, part of this into the floor. So kind of really have a more like uh, integrated kind of panel, and also like on a lot of the design tools that we are using now, the shapes that come out of it are more efficient, but like for example are more optimized, but they are more difficult to build because the shapes are more complex because it's not just like a rectangular slab, right? But it's a slab where one of the things that we are using a lot for the last like 10 years at least, myself personally, but I know other people for longer, is like the concepts of like topology optimization, where like, for example, you take a slab and you remove, or a volume, and you remove any area that is not kind of carrying any load, right? That is not working. So that gives you a very complex shape, a lot more difficult to build than a rectangle. However, it uses less material, so it's more efficient. So how can we translate, and that goes again to like, how can we make a form work, translate these shapes from the digital to the physical? And that way 3D printing kind of, I think, really has a great opportunity, or is really greatly starting to be used to make these shapes, to kind of help in this, and then in this translation, especially for like the form. And then you can have like very sustainable and efficient pieces and products that were not possible to make before 3D printing. So I think that there are really great advances in 3D printing. I do try to like, I don't think that also there is like this big nonsense media or like kind of thing like if 3D printing will solve out affordable housing by just making the same boxes that before were made by head panels. I don't think so. I think that that is just actually detrimental. I mean, it's good to have publicity, but that's actually not the whole point. And I don't think that that is where 3D printing will have its biggest advantages. I think that it has great advantages in allowing us to make shapes and forms that are more efficient and more sustainable in a more direct way, and really translate a lot of this digital design into the physical reality for then people to then cast or do other works. And I think that we are in the circular factory, we are also having 3D printing capabilities just because of that, because for a lot of the parts of the project, it just makes sense to 3D print the form work and then cast on it as opposed to a very complex connections and joinery. So I think that there is really a lot of value in the, and I'm very excited by a lot of the things that are coming out now in the 3D printing.
Yeah, yeah. As we said before, the main challenge is more policy, not the technology or the ability to build when it comes to the housing shortage. What about decarbonization? So I sometimes see startups trying to or aiming to produce more sustainable cement, for example, or building materials. Is that something that has already had a big impact in the construction industry? And what do you see as the potential to decarbonize or make the production process more sustainable?
Yes, I mean definitely we are looking at a lot. We're doing a lot of research in that area of like of decarbonization. However, of like kind of, and I think that there are two areas of research in this. So one is the material research, right? Where we are people looking at cement that kind of removes pollution and whatever, and like the super interesting kind of material advances. And you also have the area of like the design. And I think that a lot of the focus of things that we do is in how can we design forms and shapes that are more efficient, that are more optimized, that require less material. And by that, you immediately start to be more sustainable. So I think that the sustainability approach has a very, very interesting and huge design component that maybe is not so talked about, but definitely something that we are working on and that we are very interested on developing with a lot of, and that definitely the fact of having the digital tools enabled to go there. So we are not, I know that, I mean, there are lots of startups into construction systems, into new methods of construction. And I think that that's very valuable because really, if we are able to build this kind of new geometries, we will be able to have a more sustainable built environment because of the way it is designed. And I think that that's something that historically was the case, like shapes where, or buildings looked as related to the materials they were built of and the realm where they were built of. And then you will have these differences across the world of like different materials give different results. But then suddenly, we just kind of right now have this thing where like everything looks the same everywhere. And it's not really taking advantage of of the, of the different material, of the different spaces, right? And I think that a big thing that we definitely see is the whole with digital technologies is the mass customization. We definitely like it's a big advantage that we offer, right? Like if we kind of customize every shape and things to the place where they are going to exist, but also to different conditions, and with digital tools like with Circular Factory, with the robotics, like we can do every single thing different. Like every single panel is different. at the same, not at, without an added cost, which is not the case of industrial manufacturing, like these car processes, right? Where they are kind of very optimized to make the same thing over and over and over again. So I think that that is a big thing when we think about these kind of more sustainable ways of building. Is not only about material innovation, but it's actually about being able to customize the process. And that's something that definitely we are doing with MI Toolbox and through the Circular Factory. Is really trying to use the robotics to customize these and to be able to produce everything different. So then you have a situation where like the building panels have different properties as they go up. So they are not all the same. And then you kind of are saving material, of course, with the higher ones that will be like lighter. So a lot of the mass customization that is enabled by 3D printing, but also by digital timber, and also by a lot of the digital fabrication technologies, kind of really, I think, has a very active impact into these issues by enabling mass customization of components and of pieces.
Great. When talking, I'm curious about, I don't know how close that is to your research or to your work, but I'm curious because it's something that I've researched when I did my master's, and we wrote a book about it called about large infrastructure projects, switching to large buildings. But there's like this common pattern in very large projects. For example, the Sydney Opera House or the Boston Big Dig, or, any large scale construction, that there's massive cost overruns and time delays, right? I mentioned before I was working for the Berlin airport, which is notoriously late and over budget. Why is that in your experience?
Well, yes, but there are many aspects to that. And one of the very interesting aspects to that, I will say, is that traditionally we haven't been able to quantify a lot of the construction tasks, and that's because they are human made, right? So you find yourself in a lot of situations where like the contractor might say, so there are two issues. So one is like management problems, of course, right? And others are like just basically human problems, right? So one would be like the situation in which like the contractors will not manage the project properly, so they will have all the trades lined up to work, but they are not staggered in a way that everyone can be working at the same time, right? So they don't have, so some of the trades, and that's a very common problem, some of the trades will not have anything to do because the previous guy didn't finish. Or if you don't have walls, you cannot put electricity. So it doesn't make sense to have an electrician if you don't have walls. So you kind of start to find yourself in this problem. And that means that if some person gets delayed, it will snowball through everyone else, right? So I think that is like that. So that has been an issue for some time, because then you have like the one making person who maybe got delayed because whatever, because he was sick or whatnot. But then now that means that a lot of everyone that was coming behind is kind of now getting stuck. And then this happens over and over again. You end up with like a huge problem, right? So I think that's one issue, is like the way that the construction construction works. Right? It has to be staggered, like the processes, and people coming behind each other, and a delay in one person will end up in larger delays. Sourcing, of course, sourcing materials. Like if you find issues where like you didn't order the material on time, then you have the same problem that the people that were supposed to use that material then, but now they have nothing to do. And again, that will delay everyone that was supposed to come behind them, right? So I think that those are like definitely big issues that and that's like even in the even on the prefabricated panel, you find the similar things, like when panels come and then suddenly they might, I mean, if in the case of a new build, because everything will come and just be staggered and be stacked, it's kind of, that's very efficient. That's when we see that really buildings go up very fast, because then everything just adds up. But when they don't add up, like if you think about projects where like suddenly things just don't add up, they don't match, now you have to fix them, and then you kind of start to get down into this snowball problem. So I think that there is a lot of issues into this into management. I mean, it's a huge, a complex management thing, and I also, and the other thing that is that and this maybe might also happen to you without thinking of like a large project, but if you ask like if you want to do a renovation on your house and you have someone to come, they will say it will take 1 month, but you already know they will be there like forever. And there is a very little trust in any contractor because we know that whatever they say, they might take 3 times that, and they will not have any reasonable excuse as to why you are now stuck with construction works for a very long time. So I think that there is also that something that the digital technologies do allow us is to have a closer quantification to the work, right? So like, hey, we know that, and that's something that we are doing with like, and my toolbox is like, so we not only have these boxes that we rent to the trades to just like slowly kind of incorporate into their production process in a very subtle way without having to make a big change. But we also can quantify like kind of how much human time something will take and machine time. So now we can at least, we are trying to start at least getting some data into that, into knowing, well, like how much actually human processes will take and kind of creating a database of that, which is something that we are like compiling and see, okay, how can we then identify or start to really have more clear time quantification, right? Like, and of course, you will have a good person that might like be able to be faster than a slower person, but we kind of find some quantifiable data as to how long it takes to do our renovation. And I'm very much looking into projects that are no new builds because with the new build, I think quantifying is kind of easier, and that's where the industry has become very good at making these towers very quickly because they know that everything will fit into place. Well, when you need more of the trades, more of like you were saying, like people coming and fixing something and doing something, and they have to measure and code and do and that, and it's not something that they will just come and put from the shelf because it has to be customized. I think that we really are looking at that as a very important aspect of reducing delays is to have quantifiable data of how long these human processes take. And then we can be pairing against that. And I think right now, a lot of the estimate of how long something takes is you ask the contractor and the contractor will say like, well, I have these people, they will take this along. It's very much learned and kind of somehow empirical knowledge. And that, and when you go and complain and you say, hey, you said you will be done 3 months ago, but you are still going, there are not really a lot of resources to quantify that other than where they are not working. But then, like, if we could pinpoint exactly where this person is taking 3 days instead of 2 hours for a task that we know historically should take this amount of time because of, and you have other people, then I think that we could have a better model of avoiding delays. And that's something that we are definitely looking into. And also in the Secure Factory, we are quantifying processes in a human and machine time to then be able to extrapolate these and see actually how the data starts to fare.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. What we discussed back then as we went through the literature, and I'm not only using that as an analogy, right? I often use the analogy to software, but it's not only an analogy. In fact, large scale software or IT projects, especially for like large companies or for government, are also over budget and over time, right? And the analysis was that it's due to the waterfall model of planning, right? So if you have like a project that costs like $1 billion, then you want to do kind of cost accounting, right? And so you plan everything to each minutious detail, right? But once you have one mistake in the planning, that can be very easily the case in projects that are so often very custom and so large, then you have what you call I call it the waterfall. You call it something else, the domino, I think, something like that. So the solution that software came up with is agile software development, right? So you modularize things more. You kind of have more short-term deadlines, right? So this way it's easier kind of to see, to quantify steps, progress, and to account for things that you didn't anticipate, or, more properly adjust timelines, more properly put people who can follow through on their commitments to the appropriate tasks, right? Because otherwise people also have an incentive to, they have information asymmetries. They know better how long their task takes than you can, right? So, and how can you know whether or not they're reliable if they say, oh, this is going to take 2 years, right? So,
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. And that definitely, I mean, like dividing it into very, very small processes. That's something that we are doing as a workflow, and that should definitely help into getting closer estimates as to um, time concerns. Because yeah, I agree that that's a big issue in the budget of the industry.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, interesting that that's kind of a full circle closed loop for me, because our conclusion was also we need to modularize the construction process more, decentralize it more, and making it into smaller subcomponents. And this seems very much to me what you're doing with the circular factory. So it's really fascinating to learn about that. Anything you feel that you haven't talked about yet when it comes to the circular factory, but that you would like to talk about?
I think that, I mean, we gave an idea. We are aiming to start producing in middle of this year. We say like around June or July. We are also kind of looking forward to have an opening and with our industry people to really kind of showcase some of the potential of the things that we are doing. So I think that it has been a very long process, like 3 years into it, but we are very much really looking forward to developing these capabilities to really start producing on site, near site. We are having an exhibition. We got invited to present some work at the Venice Biennale, which is one of the biggest architectural event. So we're going to be showing some stuff there in May in one of the palazzos from Circular Factory, some of the pieces. We are right now very exciting. We are working towards the Biennale uh, in our temporary facility. I think that that's something that somehow um, was a discovery in a way, right? That we really try to minimize our process, like a little bit what you're saying, Niklas, into like these very small steps, right? That could all be done by a machine or by a human. Very small quantifiable steps. You do this, you do that, that's it, right? And for that, we really try to design this footprint. We have the minimal amount of machines that we require with the minimal amount of tools to actually kind of optimize space, cost, etc., and then make the process. However, our factory has been a victim of what you are talking about, of construction delay. So our facility, let's say, has been one of these victims of a lot of delay due to a lot of reasons. But in the meantime, we set up our robots in what we call our temporary facility, which basically is an existing carpentry shop that they lease us a little spot. We kind of fit it there. We put our robots, and what we have been forced to do is to build all the pieces using only the robot arms, without any of all the other machines that we already have there that we envision to use. And I think that has been an interesting discovery for us into, well, actually how minimal can we go? So I mean, of course it takes longer. Of course it's not as efficient, but but it's also interesting to see that, I mean, like a lot of these processes that we kind of, that are now requiring like large machines and very expensive machines and this, uh, we could really make into more smaller, flexible machines that are easier to distribute. And I think that has been on the last, like since we started on the temporary facility in October, and for the last month, has been like, especially January, when we started to work in producing some of the variable pieces for the Venice Biennale, that we kind of said, well, I mean, there is something very interesting into like that you really are able to produce everything by just two very flexible machines and very small machines. So I think that there is a long way to go into the current prefabrication processes that require all of these large and expensive machines to really make this more human size, more smaller. Right? And that has been very exciting. So I'm very much looking forward to the results of what we're going to do. Of course, we are very much looking forward to have our own facility up and running. But I think that has been a very fascinating process of discovery and a downsizing ourselves from an already downsized version of carpentry. But I think that so far has been successful. And I think that we are really in this process. I think that we are starting, like it seems that already we are 3 years into it, but in the larger picture, it's very new. So there is a long road ahead, and we are very excited to do it, to work for it. So yeah.
Great. I'm super excited. So as soon as we can announce, so you can announce the opening dates, we're going to have a conference there for the opening. So anyone's
Yeah.
listening, look out for announcement on Infinita VC or in the link to the Telegram group that I'm going to be posting, because we invite like industry experts, people with background in the construction industry and architecture, to come to that opening and present to the world what you're doing with the Circular Factory. Anything else, Alicia? Any shout out that you want to give? Anything that you're looking for right now for your company or as an entrepreneur? How can listeners find you if they've got something that they can help you with or want to ask you more questions?
Yeah. So we think we are going to start also funding. We're going to kind of also start kind of looking for some funding series very soon. I expect in the next few months. So we are also going to like start looking for that. I am at the Secret Factory. You can reach me on the Secret Factory. The important thing is the Secret Factory, not Secret Factory. So you can find me there on the secretfactory.com. There is my email address and all my details. I am currently I'm in Canada. I'm going to be based in Roatan, and I'm kind of coming and going from Roatan in Canada, right? So I'm either in but it's easy to find me on the island. Yes.
Great. I'm looking forward to see you in Rotterdam, Alicia. Thank you so
Yes.
much for coming on the show.
Thank you.